Hello, everyone. Before today's episode, I wanted to just jump in and remind you of our upcoming women's retreat, Parting the Veil. At this event, I will be premiering some really beautiful patterns and roadmaps that God has been teaching me to help us orient in our spiritual journey and engage with it intentionally so that we can remain grounded and also be transformed so that we can become our most divine self while still in the flesh. Not only are we going to have intellectual stimulation, we also will be practicing how to embody the principles, how to actually make this journey in your life. So it's going to be the best of both worlds. If you feel called to it, I invite you to check out all the information at the link in our bio. Welcome to Hidden Wisdom. Hidden wisdom exists to initiate truth seekers into the mysteries, gently guiding them toward a lived experience of the divine that awakens and transforms faith without dismantling family or community. This work is about faith renovation and expansion, learning how to inhabit your spiritual foundation more fully, allowing for depth, relationship, and wisdom to grow over time. I'm your host, Megan Farner. Here we explore Christ-centered esotericism, spiritual discernment, embodied wisdom, and the path of initiation, so your faith can mature, deepen, and become more alive. If you're seeking more and wanting to grow with care and integrity, you are in the right place. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Hidden Wisdom. I am excited to be joined today by Leslie Householder. Leslie is known for her work on what she calls rare faith, the kind of faith that causes things to happen. As an award-winning author of 4 books and co-founder of the School of Life Mastery, she has spent over 25 years helping people realize their experiences are not random, but governed by natural laws that can be understood and aligned with for better everyday outcomes. Her work centers on helping people partner with God in a real and practical way, developing a greater capacity to receive, and living with increased confidence and awareness of God's hand in their lives. As that awareness grows, people often discover they were never waiting on God. They simply needed a shift in understanding to open the door to what was already prepared for them. Leslie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Megan. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. Well, I was referred to you by some of our community members who are aware of your work, and I've read some of your books, and I love the way that you are drawing out the eternal laws, which are the ultimate things that we are invited to develop obedience to, and the amazing miracles that take place when we do that. So I've been blessed by your work, and I appreciate your mission. Can you tell us a little bit more about your story and how it is that God led you to where you are today?
Yeah, so thank you. This goes way, way back. My husband and I, we married back in 1991. And ahead of that, before that, I felt like I had a close relationship with my Father in heaven. I felt like I could trust him. I felt like he was guiding me. I felt his love and clarity around what I wanted to become and who I wanted to be. And I wanted to return to him and couldn't wait to become a mother and just live out my destiny. And met my husband, we married, and very quickly realized how unprepared we were to be married. We both operated on faith that if we just were righteous enough, that everything would work out, even if the math didn't math. And that's something that I think a lot of people experience and understand. But for whatever reason, it was profoundly a problem for us at that time. We worked multiple jobs. I remember finding food out of the trash cans at the places I would work. It was significant, and we struggled for about 7 years. And in the meantime, we had some friends, and they could see that our response to our challenges and the way we were trying to solve them was only creating more problems. But we couldn't see that. We didn't understand that. We didn't understand what we were doing wrong. We were still operating on the principle that the righteous will prosper. And so we were feeding missionaries whatever we could find in our cupboards. We were paying our tithing. We were trying to be active in service. We were trying to do all these things, but the money was just a problem. And they had us, they invited us to start coming to events that would teach us about mindset and whatever. And I think they could see how poor our mindset was and how um, every setback would cause me especially to react with anger and frustration and like, where'd you go, God? I couldn't hear him anymore. I thought, did you just abandon me? I remember the whole path leading up to um, getting to the temple was, you go to seminary, you finish, you get your young woman's recognition award, you do all these things, and then the next thing on the list was endure to the end. And I'm like, well, what's the next thing that's going to help me get where I need to go? Anyway, it was just a lot of confusion. Ultimately, after about 7 years, we we gained some training that helped us see that we were just disobeying some of the laws that govern prosperity, and we didn't even realize it. A speaker that we were listening to started out by quoting from Doctrine and Covenants, talking about how anytime we obtain a blessing, it is by obedience to the law upon which it is predicated. And I'm like, well, yeah, I get that. So what am I doing wrong? And by the end of the training, we're like, oh my word, it is so simple. And within 3 months, we tripled our income. And this message today, and my message that I teach about, is not a get rich quick thing. It's not about how to make $1 billion. Unless your life's mission is going to require $1 billion, then these principles help you get that. But really, it's all about aligning with the principles and the laws that govern prosperity. After we had this breakthrough, and I'm like, oh my word, these principles are so powerful and they're so simple. How come we don't hear about this more? In study, in realizing they are scriptural, they are what we learn, but it's just understanding how to apply them better. So I went and trained with the presenter, who at the time was Bob Proctor. I trained with him to teach his programs, facilitated his courses, and yet I had 5 kids, I think one on the way. I was just like, very masculine approach
Mm-hmm.
to sharing, and I didn't know any better. But I thought, I'm going to just start teaching these things, and I started doing seminars and stuff, but it became too much.
Mm.
And so I thought, well, I would feel guilty not sharing what I learned. I had this passion for, I wanted to bring, especially to members of my own faith, what I had learned and how it applies and how it fits in the whole picture of the gospel. And so I thought, well, I'm going to feel guilty if I don't do something. And so I decided to write a book and let that be my seminar. And that was
Mm-hmm.
where the Jackrabbit Factor came from. That's where Hidden Treasures came from. And from there, people were asking for classes. So it kind of backfired. I was trying to retire and just write my book and let it do its thing. And it turned into something more.
Mm.
That's kind of where it all started.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. I think it's such a relatable story. I mean, I think that at one point or another, we all struggle with the financial aspect. So can you tell us a little bit more about your realizations and what came to you as far as helping you perceive what you had been doing wrong, first off, and then maybe we can talk about what's the truth? What are the real laws that have to be obeyed in order to experience abundance? But let's start with what do we all get wrong?
Well, a very relatable and understandable example of that is how I was praying. I would see I would see that we were running out of money or that we didn't have what we needed for the next bill. And I would have on the screen of my mind what that's going to look like, who I'm going to have to talk to, who I'm going to have Claudia at the bank. I'm going to have to call her again and beg for mercy that she just let that check go through, even though the money's not there, because it's going to come. And like, I'm picturing the work and the stress and the fight that I'm going to have around solving this problem while I'm on my knees saying, Heavenly Father, please help us. And what I was doing wrong is I was picturing what I didn't want while asking for what I did want. That's a
Mm,
very simple tweak that can make a difference, where instead, what I learned is that we have to get all aligned. The vision in our mind, the feelings in our heart, and the words coming out of our mouth, they need to be lined up. They need to be consistent because our Father in heaven has so much he wants to bless us with, but it requires that we line up with the order of things and the way we're designed to receive. And so what it became was I would pause and I would imagine how it would look and what the conversation with my husband would be and how we would feel to say, Trevin, that's my husband's name. Trevin, can you believe what God did for us? It worked out. There was no way we could have seen how that was going to work out, but he did it. He helped us find the way. And then going in prayer, Father in heaven, thank you for providing the way for this problem to be solved. Thank you for guiding us to the answer. Thank you for leading us to the solutions and the resources we need, expressing our trust, expressing our confidence, and then keeping calm and moving our feet in the ways that we're inspired. Because it's kind of like, I like to think of it like a radio broadcast. Here in the room, or where you are in your room, Megan, if I were to ask you, is there music in the room?
Not that I'm hearing at the moment.
Not that you hear in the moment, but is there music in the room?
Yes.
And if you had a radio and you turned it on, you would hear it.
Mm-hmm.
And you could change the channel and you could hear different music. If you were to do that and have a radio in your room and turn it on and hear the music, would you say that turning the radio on sucked music into the room? Did it attract music? No, it just made audible what was already there. And that is what we are doing as human beings, given bodies that vibrate energetically on a molecular level, that when we picture on the screen of our mind what we don't want and get fearful and stressed about how bad things are, then we are like a radio that's tuning into a broadcast of ideas that will get us more of that.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're trying to listen for God's instructions, if we're trying to listen to his guidance or his influence or his promptings while picturing fearful things, he's not going to get through to us. It's on a broadcast that's totally on a different level. And so we need to tune in to his spirit. And we do that by, I imagine, heaven's help. I imagine angels coming to, like, who was it that said it? At breakneck speed, President or Elder Holland talking about the angels coming to help the family of Abraham. And so that's just one little tweak that the difference.
That's a big one. Yeah. And as you said that, I was just thinking about maybe some of the reasons that we pray like that. And I wonder if this would be a great area for us to tune in to see what unbelief or what false beliefs we have about God. Because I think one reason that we pray that way is because there's a part of us that doesn't actually believe that God is going to give us prosperity, is going to give us abundance, and that maybe God has good reasons for that. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of having a correct understanding of God when we're practicing this and maybe some of the things we get wrong?
Oh, there's so much. And I can speak from my own experience. I remember being in high school, and I don't know where I picked up this belief. It is a false belief. I've talked with my mother about it, and she's like, you didn't get that from me, but and that is that if somebody is prospering, if somebody's doing well, if somebody's driving down the road and they've got a fancy boat and they're with their family heading to the lake, then they're doing something evil. Like, I don't know where that came from. I was convinced that if somebody is in a big, nice, fancy home, that they are somehow wicked. I mean, I'm embarrassed to even say that because there are wicked people in poor homes. There are wicked people in large homes. It's like, I am wicked, plenty. And so I am embarrassed to say that that's where I was coming from, but I think deep down, it was a protection mechanism to not feel like I should expand myself and live to the fullest the privileges that we have in being children of our Father in heaven. Um, where that came from, I think, is that I was so afraid of doing anything wrong that I thought that wealth or abundance would corrupt me because of
Mm-hmm.
how often we hear that it can. It can corrupt people. It can become a person's God. But I can also say that there is such thing as having pride in poverty, and pride
Mm-hmm.
is not good in either case. And so I'm so proud that I don't have those things, or am I proud that I have things? In either case, it's not healthy, and it's not aligned with who we are. We're
Mm-hmm.
children of a king. I mean, if you think about all that he has for us, um, we're only given to the capacity that we have developed ourselves to be able to receive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's huge. And that's a very relevant principle to a lot of the things we talk about on this channel is um, we tend to focus on the divine masculine principles of action and what we need to be doing. And we have a harder time sitting with the divine feminine, which is the capacity to receive, right? To believe that I am worthy and that God loves me. And God loves all of us so much that if we got out of our own way and abided by these laws, then we could all be rich. I think that that's an area that maybe we might have some unbelief in too, is just the scarcity mindset of like there's not enough for all of us to live in abundance. But that's contrary to some of the eternal laws, right? And so, yeah, I just wanted to highlight the importance of the inner work that it takes for us to look and see what are the false beliefs that I have about God, about myself, and my worthiness, about money, and how money comes to us, right? Do I believe that money can just flow to me effortlessly, or do I think that I have to be working for it all the time? There's so many different things for us to look at. So thank you. Okay, so that praying in alignment, that was fantastic. Um, what other things do you feel like we get wrong?
Um, I think one of the main things that we get wrong is where we find our confidence in terms of people think that they're going to be okay as long as there's enough money. And so a lot of times people will go seek and build and create in order to have a lot of money so that they can finally have peace of mind. But what I learned, and this is something that, oh, I could talk for hours on, I'm not going to, but when we first discovered these principles and we started living by them, doors opened and opportunities came, and my husband's income was increased, and just things started working, I think, the way they were all designed to work. But we got a little bit, we adopted a false belief that, okay, because we can make money now, where it was so hard before, because we have more money now, we're okay. And then the recession hit, and
Mm,
everything that we had built was just like came out from under us. Um, and what principles had worked for us to that point seemed suspended. We're like, what happened? It felt absolutely suspended. And obviously there was more for us to learn. And that was where my Portal to Genius book came from, is understanding what we had gotten wrong to that point that needed fixing. And that was realizing that peace of mind, really the goal is to have peace of mind. It's that serenity, it's that confidence, it's that peace that passeth all understanding. And that is not a function of how much money we have. We think it is, but it's not. And I can say, because of that recession, that we have been in fear with relatively a lot of money because we were afraid of losing it. We have been in fear with very little money because we didn't have enough. We've also had great peace and confidence in both cases, depending on where we had our focus. And what we learned through the recession, when everything that we thought we'd learned had been stripped away, and we were down to like $200 left in the bank, no income in sight, no paycheck in sight, 7 kids that we were feeding, and about $15,000 in mortgages. And because we had also started investing in real estate that was all tanking. Within a couple weeks, we had like $15,000 to come up with. And we're like, what? I have no idea how this is going to work out. And that weekend was our anniversary. And I'm like, honey, we've gone a year now without going out to eat. Could we just pretend for a couple hours that everything is fine? We're so depleted. Could we just spend a couple hours enjoying ourselves in our this relationship? And he's like, whatever, let's just do it. So we went out to eat, and we had no idea how we were going to get through that week. We had no idea how we were going to get through the month. And as we're sitting there, it was Macaroni Grill down Gilbert, Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
And he ordered a salmon because he had more faith than me. I ordered a $2 soup. And we're sitting there and we're like, you know what? Do you think we'll have it figured out in 10 years? Oh, sure. Yeah, 10 years, we'll have it figured out by then. Then let's talk about what we'll be doing in 10 years. Let's talk about that. So we started imagining how old the kids would be, where we'd be living, because we were having to downsize too, and what our home would be like and what we'd be doing. Are we still going to be teaching? Yeah, that's what we do. And we started to change what we were picturing, what we were talking about, what we were feeling. And we really enjoyed ourselves. We let ourselves, like Peter, focused on the Savior. Even though the waves were crashing around him, he stayed focused on where he was going. We paid the bill. We went out to the car. And from the back, we heard this noise, and we turned around, and it was the server, the waiter, coming running out after us with a paper. And we're like, what is that? And he ran out and he gave us this receipt, and he said, because it's your anniversary, the meal's on us. And this was macaroni. This was a chain. This wasn't like some mom and pop thing with somebody overhearing it was our anniversary. Mm-hmm. We'd never seen that. And we had already paid the bill, but he voided it and came running after us to let us know. And we looked at each other and we're like, that's the key. We have to stay in anticipation and looking forward to the outcomes and the growth and the provision and everything, trusting. And step by step, we would have what we need in the moment. That was back to your question, what's another false belief? The false belief is that the money in the bank is your security. Mm. It's not. The real goal is to have sufficient for your needs. Sufficient for your needs. That's different for everybody. And our real provision is not what's in the bank. It's what God can provide in any given moment. And one thing that Bob Proctor told us when we were mentoring with him, we were worried about a job loss. And he said, your job doesn't pay you. God pays you through the job. If you lose that job, God can still find another way to pay you through another job or through some other means. And so that's the other false belief I would like to bring out, is that our security is in living what we were put here to do. Our security is in our Father in heaven. It's in his provision. And he can get that to us with or without a job, but he can't do it when we're in fear. That is one of the most important things for us to work on, is in managing when we get into fear. And there's things that we can do to help that happen.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I think that fear and financial fear, again, it's so prevalent, right? And no matter what your situation is, as you were saying, even if you have a lot of prosperity, there's a fear that you're going to lose it. So what are some of the practical tools that you use to help just regulate the nervous system and really step outside of that fear?
Yeah, so especially during the recession, that is something we had lots of opportunity to practice, right? This went on for about 5 years. We were early adopters of the recession, I might say. Before everybody else was talking about it, we were already feeling it. And one thing that we would do is we would talk about 10 years from now. We would zoom out, because sometimes being right here in the middle of it, it's very hard to not feel that. It reminds me of, I used to have a real, and sometimes I still do, sometimes I'll have a real fear of being on a freeway in fast traffic on curvy roads when the lanes are very narrow and I'm driving next to a semi. Mm-hmm. Right. In that moment, it's scary. You feel like they're going to come into your lane. And I notice that when I look over to see how close it is, I naturally start pulling towards the semi. You go where your focus is. You subconsciously move in the direction of what you are thinking about the most often. And so just knowing that, if I want to subconsciously move towards something better, I need to allow myself to ponder on better things. And so I think people don't realize how often they are entertaining the scary what ifs.
Mm-hmm.
People don't realize how often they are making their decisions and feeling a certain way because of the stories that they're running in their head about what if? What if that doesn't work out? What if this doesn't happen? What if I lose that? Sometimes to get back to center or to remove that fear, you can remind yourself, oh, I have a table in front of me. And you start getting out of your head and in everything you're imagining and into your physical world. Get present with your physical world. There is a table in front of me. There is a tree outside. I have air to breathe. There's food in my stomach. And you start getting present with what is actually real right now. And remember that fear only comes, the fear we're talking about only comes from thinking about something you don't want. And Michael J. Fox and somebody else has said it too, is if you worry about a thing and then it happens, you've lived it twice.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to live it or we're not going to live it, but worrying about it is living it twice. Let's just commit to only living it once if it has to happen at all. And as we find out, the less we worry about things, the less those things tend to happen.
Mm-hmm. So good. Thank you. Those are great tools. I appreciate that visualization, talking about what you're going to experience in the future, grounding into the present. I like the exercise too of like you look for 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can feel, 3 things you can hear, et cetera, et cetera. So that's wonderful. Okay. So let's transition a little bit to talk about the eternal laws, right? And that when we come into alignment with the eternal laws, then we get the blessing that is attached to it. What are some of the eternal laws that God was teaching you to help tap into that prosperity intentionally?
Yeah, well, kind of as a segue back to the one about the fears, because that's so important. And if people ask me, well, what is Rare Faith about? If I could sum it up into one little thing that just encompasses the whole world of it, it would be fear not. And yet people don't know how to release the fear or they don't know what to do with it. But this is one thing that really, really struck me, and that is from Doctrine and Covenants 67:3, where it says, ye endeavored to believe that ye should receive the blessing which was offered unto you. But behold, verily I say unto you, there were fears in your hearts, and verily this is the reason that ye did not receive. And what that did for me is it made me realize our Father in heaven has so much he wants to do for us. Angels who can attend to us. But there are certain things that we cannot receive, that he cannot give us if fear is in our hearts. And that is one of the laws, is to live with the absence of fear. And I say it that way because I think people tend to say, I don't have enough faith, or I need to have faith, or that won't work. But what I'm saying, and I can tell you that this comes from years of testing and experimenting. We've had so many challenges, so many trials we've been through, not just financial. I went through cancer. We've got all these other things that we've experienced. And in each and every one of them, I've taken the principles, these rare faith principles that I've kind of identified, and I've looked for which ones really matter. Which ones really matter. And I've found that it's not so much, you don't have to have a huge amount of faith. All it takes is the absence of fear. That's the key. Now, great faith can help you get past the fear, but the simplest way to go from feeling anxious or stressed about something to the absence of fear is to just say, I choose to believe.
Yeah.
You can say it. You can say it, because agency is one of the principles upon which so many of the blessings can be realized, but it requires agency. It requires exercising that agency. And I might not feel confident. I might not feel faithful. I might be full of fear, but I can use my agency to say the words, I choose to believe. I choose to believe. And there have been times where I'm driving down the road and life is falling apart and things are scary. And I am trying to overcome the subconscious programs that are keeping me trapped or keeping me blocked, keeping me from receiving what is available to me. That I will yell it so that my own ears hear my voice saying, I choose to believe. I choose to believe. Life is abundant. I have all I need. And even if it felt like a lie, we're lying to ourselves all the time anyway. We're lying to ourselves when we say that it's not going to work out, or that there's not enough, or that it's impossible. Those are lies. And so we may as well say the things that help us align with the principles and the laws and principles that govern our outcomes, daily outcomes. Even if it feels like a lie, it's a conscious choice.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's helpful to remember that it only feels like a lie when we're operating from our natural man. It only
Exactly.
feels like a lie when we're looking at life from our ego, right? Where when we tap into our true identity, the fact that we are pieces of God, of course it's going to work out. Of course it's abundant, right? Like that is actually the truth that is true outside of time and space and just like this little mortal
Yeah.
life. So it's not a lie. You're just speaking from a truer place.
Or as they say, it's speaking the truth in advance.
Yes.
God does that all the time, mother of
Right.
all living, even though she hadn't had a single child yet.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you bring up an interesting point there too. I'd love to hear your thoughts just on the importance of the language that we use, right? And I liked how in the beginning you talked about the importance of aligning our minds, our thoughts, our hearts, our feelings, and also our words. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, like for example, I will write goal statements to help me get clear on what I aim to achieve and to help me build a vision around it,
Mhm.
because clarity of vision is one of the most important steps for moving you in a new direction. And that is one thing that we do in our community is we will learn how to do goal statements in creation language, uh, where instead of saying I something like I want to do this thing by this certain date, we will talk about it either in present tense or even past tense. We'll project our minds forward to how I want to feel, say on the last day of my life. I am so happy and grateful, and we bring those emotions to the language. I am so happy and grateful now that I look back on my life at what was accomplished, and we're creating uh, in advance what we hope to realize. Now, some of the language that can be sabotaging is, for example, around weight loss. If you were to say, I have lost so much weight, well, your mind automatically associates the word weight with heavy things. And to lose weight, your subconscious mind feels like, oh, I lost something. I need to go find it. And so we're working against the
Mm.
principles that govern creation and evolution in positive directions. And so the word lose weight can be I am fit and strong. I release the things that I don't need. It's a
Mhm.
different language than I lost something. It's I'm releasing something.
I have a friend who uses the language let go. I've let
Mhm.
go of so many things, right? And then it sounds voluntary. It sounds more intentional. Yeah, that's
Yes.
really that's great. Thank you. Okay, so absence of fear, clarity of vision. What else?
Mm. There's this balance between um, attachment and uh, surrender. Like we want to be just at the right sweet spot between expectation and needing it to happen, as opposed to uh, being so apathetic that there's no movement.
Mm,
There's a really important and appropriate balance between the two. And one of the things that people realize, it's not a good thing to set goals for other people. It's not good to be intentional on somebody else's outcome. We can participate by helping to create a space for it and supporting it, but it's important to um, be unattached to whether or not they do it. For example, with my family, if I have a goal for my child that they maybe it's something that they already want, and I'm picturing it with them, and I'm desiring it for them. Sometimes the other person may or may not want to participate in that. Sometimes they may not be as interested in the vision that you have for them. But I can hold a vision for a positive outcome on another person if I'm unattached to the timing of it. If I allow it to take until the eternities. If I do that for the purpose of changing me so that I show up with more inspired input and love and words that help its possibility to happen without the expectation or need that it happen any certain time. I don't know if
mm,
that is making sense, but
mm,
as far as goals for myself, I can be playful about imagining how it would be to experience that. That brings in the right energy of creation, is to be excited and anticipatory about it. I'm anticipating it, but I'm also I can even have a date when it needs to happen. Like if I'm trying to get a bill paid, I'm going to be looking at, okay, that's due on Tuesday. Then I'm imagining how I feel on Wednesday. So grateful that it worked out. Um, but if I am too attached to an outcome, then I start to bring in this masculine energy of force, and it can sabotage its creation.
mm-hmm. Yeah. This is, I think, just a general principle that we have to learn for all areas of our life is this dance between the masculine action, doing, forcing energy, and the feminine receptive flow, right? And what I've found, and I think you're describing this as well, is that it really helps to lead with the flow, lead with the trust, lead with that playful, anticipatory gratitude, your heart wide open, and then allow God to teach you what the aligned action is that you might need to take. Or you might not need to, right? Like either way, when we start from that place of flow and identity and that connectedness, then the structure can come in and support that. It doesn't really work as well the other way around. If I'm constantly focused on, I have to make this happen, I have to figure this out, I've got to do all these things before the blessings will come, again, I think that that is a way that we're focusing on the lack. We're focusing on the scarcity and we're putting all this pressure on ourselves when in reality, we can't control anything, other than, am I doing what is aligned? So yeah, that's a big one, I think, just for life in general.
Well, and one of the most important things too here is I've gone from a place of learning these principles in a very secular setting and seeing how it fits with my beliefs and scripture, and it just has blown open a whole world of understanding that is very exciting to me. And honestly, it's one of the only topics in my life that has held my attention this long. I have a very short attention span around so many things, but this one just keeps expanding and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I realized that it started out being about how to create anything, how to achieve anything. And it evolved to how to stop being the limiting factor in what God wants to do here.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of, and it, I think that shifted from a masculine approach to a more feminine approach. And for men or women, it's important to recognize that we can't possibly imagine big enough the goals that our Father has in mind for us. And so,
Mm-hmm.
yes, we can achieve what seems to be seemingly impossible things by using these principles. It's how mountains are moved in our lives, metaphorically or But all that really matters is that I am no longer blocked from becoming my or achieving my highest potential or
Hmm.
accomplishing the purposes that he sent me here to accomplish. Uh, we are going to hit obstacles. We are going to hit um, blocks and challenges that try the opposition that tries to keep us from fulfilling our missions. But that's what these principles are for, is to
Hmm.
keep us from being blocked from achieving what God has put us here to do.
Hmm. Yeah, and so many of those blocks are internal, I think. And so being willing to see that and take accountability for it and ownership and say, all right, this is a me thing. And the great news is I can fix a me thing, right? Like that's one of the limited places where I actually do have control. But yes, I agree with you. I think that the invitation of a deeper, more personal relationship with God is to become co-creators, and in that way, we have Christ, who's a masculine. We're meant to be the bride. And so there is an aspect of learning how to go into flow, how to trust, how to surrender, how to be receptive. And that is our co-creative effort to then let God work miracles, let God instruct us very specifically on the things that are in alignment for us and guide us in that way. So that's beautiful. I love that. Thank you.
One other thing about that too is that I've learned that these principles are morality neutral. In
Hmm.
other words, they work for inspired goals and they work for stupid goals. And that's another thing that we learned during the recession is like, yeah, these you can achieve whatever you set your mind to using these principles, but to your increase or to your detriment, it's neutral. And so I like to compare it to, co-creation being like procreation. Just because you can doesn't mean you should in every
Hmm.
situation. There are appropriate times and places to apply the principles.
Yes.
And I think that is one thing that distinguishes rare faith and the body of work that I'm focused on, as opposed to the more broad general law of attraction approach, is rare faith implies a responsibility to applying it in the proper times and places. And there are some times where um, we are maybe restrained from
Hmm.
from accomplishing something that we could do, but maybe we shouldn't do right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate that aspect of discernment, right? And of identifying what is actually for me and what isn't, in alignment with the Most High God. I think that that's huge. So tell us a little bit more about your latest project and what you're working on, and also what resources you have available for people who are wanting to learn and apply these principles.
Yeah, thank you. So the first three books, the first one was the Jacobit Factor, and it's a story that kind of shows how a person is learning to apply these principles. It's actually a couple. And so you see how they're both learning, they're on two different paths, but they learn the same things before they come back together. Um, and then Hidden Treasures, Heaven's Astonishing Help with Your Money Matters, is a book that explains the principles from a perspective, from my LDS background perspective. It's written for anybody, but it's from my come from. And then because of the recession, the Jacobit Factor needed a sequel. And so that was Portal to Genius. All three of those are available as free downloads. And they are also available on audio on YouTube or Audible or whatever. So there's nothing to keep a person from taking those things in at no charge. The book I'm working on now is, the working title is Rare Faith Moving Mountains. It used to be Rare Faith, the kind of faith that causes things to happen. That was getting a little long. So
Hmm.
it's moving mountains. It's doing impossible things with God and these principles. And what that one is intended to do is to kind of speak a little more to the idea that just because we can doesn't mean we always should. It's about looking at the differences between the the principles that you may learn in a secular setting and how those fit into the context of a covenant relationship with God. That is my intent, is to leave. If I do nothing else, I want to leave an explanation or an exploration of how these universal principles of success can be applied and ought to be applied inside a covenant relationship with God. And
Hmm.
that's its purpose. And I'm finding that it's a challenge. It is a very challenging work, and I have moved from pushing to get it done to, as I'm learning what you're sharing with me, how to be a little less um, driving on that and just to be more reflective and let it come when it's going to come. I've had
Hmm.
deadlines on it and I'm just kind of letting those go.
Yeah.
So
Good for you. That's hard.
it is.
I think we can relate to each other. I have a lot of masculine energy, and so it's very easy to go into that place of force and deadlines and all of that. And I don't know about you, but it's harder to
It is.
let go of the control. Really, is what it is, right? To let go of the control and the fear that drives that, and instead to just let it flow and to know that it'll arrive exactly when it's supposed to.
Yeah,
That's a lot harder.
yes, and before I forget, I've started, because what I've started on this book, I'm letting the excerpt go. Like the chapters that I've written are out there already, because if it doesn't happen for 10 more years, I was excited enough about what's in there so far. I wanted to make that available, and that's at rarefaith.org. You can just see where it's starting.
Beautiful. I would love your permission, if it's okay with you, to add all of these to our app library. Is that something that you would be okay? Perfect.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we'll make those available there. So if anyone's interested, they can go and download all of these books and the excerpt as well, through the Hidden Wisdom app library. That'll just make it really easy. Where else can people connect with you, learn from you, work with you, all of that?
Yeah, so rarefaith.org is my blog. I've got my podcast there. You can connect with me on social media. Rare Faith is the handle on Instagram. I am also at the School of Life Mastery.com. It is where we hold our classes. We have, originally, it was just one course that I built as a derivative of the Jacobit Factor book, and it has since turned into so many things because of all that we've learned since then. You think you've learned it, and then you haven't, right?
Yeah.
There's so much more. So
Yep.
we actually have a track of 12 different classes that run in a series, and people either do it solo journey, or they do it guided expedition with a facilitator, or they do it with me in what I call my Founders Odyssey program. And so that is at the School of Life Mastery. And there's a free course there that people can start with if they want to understand more about rare faith and how to experience different outcomes right now. I mean, some of these principles are so simple. One of the first ones that I put to the test, if we have time, I'd love to share that.
Yeah, please do.
Um, One of the first principles is called the law of the vacuum. And it is the one that says nature abhors a vacuum. So if we create space in our life, then naturally something is going to flow into it. And we kind of help decide what that's going to be based on the other principles that we're applying in terms of vision and
Mm,
emotional application. But wanting to put one to the test, we came home and we had been complaining about the carpet in our home for years, because we had bought it as a HUD home, repossessed, to fix up. And there was this nasty carpet that had fecal matter on it. It was just nasty. And we had tried to clean it, but deep down, I always knew it wasn't ideal. And so we couldn't afford to replace it. And we had no way to do that. But, we decided we are going to put this principle to the test. So we came home and we ripped out the carpet, and we lived on concrete and tack strips with our 2 or 3 little kids at the time, for about 2 weeks. And within that time, we ended up with this escrow overage that we hadn't expected, that was enough to cover new carpet. And we had our new carpet within just a couple of weeks from putting that principle to the test. Now, people might argue that overage was going to come anyway. That escrow overage was going to happen anyway. But yes, what I am convinced would have happened is we would have had some other medical emergency or car repair or something to eat it up. I think
mm,
when we hold vision and have intention and apply these principles, then the way is protected for those things to be realized more than otherwise, because without applying these principles, we were constantly being hit with setback after set. Like we couldn't come up for air without another
Mm-hmm.
wave crashing down on us. And life just gets a little more doable when we align with the principles. It doesn't take away all the challenges, because we need challenges to grow. We need them to learn. So it's not about avoiding all challenges. We're just empowered to glean every benefit that's contained in those adversities
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
have what we need.
I love that. And I so appreciate you teaching these laws with the simplicity that you do and your own life experience. Again, that makes it so relatable and powerful. And also, I just want to put it out there too that when you know the law, then you can engage with it intentionally. And the power of that intention, that's the power of your agency, right? Like that is our superpower as creators. And so, even if you just know the laws, and maybe you're not really like, maybe you're still taking some of the same steps, like you're doing some of the similar things. But when you can put the intention behind it of, I'm going to do this thing, and now I know that I'm going to do it because I'm trying to follow this law, like that alone, I think can really shift things.
And to know that if I live this law, I will experience the blessing contained or connected to it.
Yes.
Like when I was going through cancer, it was a high stage 3 and we didn't know how it was going to turn. And there were some times where I would very intentionally, like if I was experiencing a lot of pain or if I was dealing with some of the treatments or whatever, and there was nothing else I could do, I went to gratitude. It was
Mm,
mechanical at first. I'm thankful for my eyes. I'm thankful for my ears. And I would just go to gratitude and intentionally think of everything and express gratitude for every possible thing I could think of, because I knew that would help me realize the best possible outcome. Whatever it was going to be, I knew it wasn't going to be my fault that I didn't realize it,
mm-hmm.
as one example.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. Well, this was wonderful. I so appreciate you. And again, your work and your wisdom. Thank you for sharing with us today.
Appreciate being here. Thanks for the opportunity.
If you're ready to continue this work with guidance and shared language, I invite you into the Hidden Wisdom app, where faith is supported through renovation and expansion. If this episode resonated, please consider liking, sharing, or subscribing, especially with someone you feel would be strengthened by this conversation. You can also send a donation to Hidden Wisdom via Megan Farner on Venmo. Link is in the description. These are some of the simplest ways to support this work and help it reach those who are quietly seeking. Until next time, trust what is unfolding. There is hidden wisdom all around you.